Hey, welcome back. In this episode, we're going to focus on the engine. Now, I've already run that engine. And I know it runs good, so I'm not going to dig into the internals at all. What I want to do, though, is make sure that I've got everything sealed up. So I've got a bunch of seals that are just actually coming in today. But what I want to do is get this thing flushed out, get the seals all put together, get the engine mostly reassembled, and then clean it up and get a fresh coat of paint on this. And then once I'm done with that, I can pull the engine and set it aside and focus on the frame. But for this episode, we're going to stick with the engine, so stick around. Before we get on with the engine work, I told you I would keep you updated on work that happened in between installments. And so that involves the transmission. My buddy Guy came and helped me out with this. He's got a little more information, a little more knowledge in this area, but we pulled the transmission and transfer case. And the problem that we were having with it is it would go into first and reverse, but it wouldn't go into second or third. It was stuck there. And so we took it apart and we discovered some synchros that were kind of rusted in. There's maybe a little moisture in there. It wasn't too bad, but so we pulled everything apart and inspected all the gears. We ended up putting in new needle bearings and new seals everywhere. We even did that on the transfer case. So we got all that done. We got it back together now. Everything's working good on this. So we're going to tuck this one away and we'll pull it back out when we're ready for it. Well, that water was running clear almost from the beginning. I'll shoot a little more in the front here, but it looks like I got a nice clean block. I don't see a lot of rust, and so I think we're in good shape. I pulled the timing cover off earlier before I started this flush. And only now realize that I'm probably dumping water down into the crankcase. And that's okay. I need to pull the plug and get the oil out of there because I'll be taking the pan off the bottom shortly. But there's going to be a lot of water in there. That's all that racket. I don't know if you guys can see that. I got a bunch of swans flying by, making a lot of noise. So that's not a big deal. I'm going to have to drain that pan anyway in just a little bit so that I can take the oil pan off and inspect that. Let's move on. I think blasting it from the front broke free the last of this rust. So I ran it long enough to see it coming out clear again. So you guys tell me. Shooting right in here into the block with a pressure washer. Is that a good idea or a bad idea? Looks like it cleaned it out pretty well though. Everything's nice and clean now. So let's drain that oil and see what it looks like. I'm gonna get some stuff out of the way here, and then when those gaskets come in and the seals, we'll start putting some of that stuff back together. Well, that wasn't too tough. Got this guy hanging here now. Put a bag in there so that I can catch some of that oil that's dripping. That'll probably drip for a while. And I've got my pan down here. We got for sure some sludge down in the bottom. We'll clean that out. But there's nothing in here but sludge. So no metal, no nothing else like that. So that looks pretty good. All right, that's out now. Got it tucked away here. And the next thing I need to do is just a lot of cleaning. I'm going to pull that lower valve cover and the top valve cover off and strip those down. Get them nice and clean, and I'll put those back on with the gaskets before I paint. And the oil pan, I'll need to clean that out, and I think I'm going to probably paint the oil pan before I put it back on. And for the rest of this, it's just covering up all these holes, and then I'll clean that block up, and that should be ready for paint. I've been working on the oil pan. I got all the gunk cleaned out of the inside, scraped it out, rinsed it out with a little gasoline, and that looks clean enough. And then I took a wire wheel to the outside there. I think it looks pretty good. Now, I have two things I have to do before I can lay some paint down on this. First thing I want to do is fix these holes. You can see, I don't know if you can see it here on camera, but most of these holes are indented, so I need to flip this over and flatten those out so it'll seal properly. And then I'll go over the rest of this with a rust converter. There's still just a little bit here, but I'm not going to keep going and try to sand that down to bare metal. That rust converter will take care of the rest. Then I can lay a coat of paint down. It's got everything stripped that needs to be painted along with the engine. So got the dipstick tube ready to go, oil pan, upper valve cover, lower valve cover, timing cover, upper radiator hose inlet, and all of this stuff is for that oil, the oil filter. It's kind of neat. Remember I said this is a engine out of an M38A1 Army vehicle. When I sanded this off, you couldn't even see this until I took the paint off, but it says military standard filter. So that's kind of cool. I hope once I paint it that still shows through. All right, it's paint day. So I've got everything prepped here. And these parts are all going to get primer first, since most of them are down to bare metal. And I've put some fittings, just some old fittings I had laying around, threw a little tape on there, but I just want to protect those threads. I don't want the threads getting coated with paint. But these are ready to go. I'll just wipe them down with some acetone and get a coat of primer on, and then we'll follow that up with some color. Right, round one done. We'll let this tack up, and then we'll move on to color. All right, we've got a couple coats on now. I think everything looks pretty good. It's a little blotchy here. Right in here, I'm not sure why, but I'm not too worried about that. So I'm gonna let this stuff cure overnight, and then I'll dig out my gaskets and I'll start putting stuff together so I can put a coat of paint on the engine. All right, that's it for now. I got everything that I'm going to put together back on here. Got the exhaust manifold. You can see the carburetor's on there now. Water pump. I got the pulley for the crank there, the oil filter. But you'll notice there's no wires, and we're missing the distributor, and that's because the vacuum advance was no good on this distributor. And you can't just run down to O'Reilly and buy a new vacuum advance for this. They don't make them. So you have to send it out to be rebuilt, which is very expensive. So I ended up ordering up a separate distributor. It's basically a solid state electronic ignition distributor, which is about the same price as rebuilding that vacuum advance. So this will get covered up now and tucked away for safekeeping. And I'm going to shift my attention now to the frame. So in the next installment of the series, I'm going to work on this frame. In the meantime, if you want to follow along with progress, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I've got a playlist out on the channel with all the previous episodes of my progress on this. And thanks for sticking around, and we will see you next time.